Hello, mer friends. I'm Ariel, and this is Naturally Mermaid. This is a difficult video to make. I actually was not planning on having to make this video, but I'm sure no one really plans to have to go through this type of situation. Since you've clicked on the video, you know what it's about. I'm going to be talking about my miscarriage. I mainly on this channel talk about sustainability, intentional living, things like that. But I've also talked about how to get birth control without health insurance. I've talked about other things having to do with your reproductive health, so it's only fitting that I also talk about this. A little bit of background. I have been married for 8 years. Been with the same guy since I was 16, so we've been together for a very long time. But this was our first pregnancy, which is crazy because you would think like when we were teenagers and we weren't being very careful, I never got pregnant. And so I stopped taking birth control 3 years ago in September 2017. And since then, never got pregnant up until September 2020. In these whole 3 years, it's kind of been like, when is this gonna happen? Is something wrong down there? But I never went to the doctor to really kind of figure out what was going on, just because, we're ready to have kids, but, not like, oh, it needs to happen now. So, just kind of let things work itself out naturally. About a year ago, September 2019, I was really like, okay, come on, what's going on? I watched this tarot card reading. It was like a pick a card. And the card pile that I picked said that within 12 months, I was going to be pregnant or have a baby. And so I really held on to that. I was like, okay, within 12 months, I'm gonna be pregnant, gonna have a baby. I know it didn't happen, within the last 2 years, but the card said it's gonna happen. And in addition to that, I also took this BuzzFeed quiz answering when are you going to have kids? And no matter what I chose, I went back and took it a few different times, but every time my answer was 32. And I am 32 right now. So I'm like, you know what? This is it. I'm gonna have a baby and whatever, everything's gonna work out as it should. Little to my surprise, in September 2020, I had a late period, which is never late. It's like clockwork pretty much, even though I hadn't been tracking it like I should, especially considering I'm trying to get pregnant. You're kind of supposed to be on top of those things. But it was like after 3 years, I don't want to say I gave up hope, but it was just like I wasn't thinking about it as much. So it was like, whatever, if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. But I will also say that about 3 months prior to getting pregnant, I did start taking some supplements. My husband started taking some supplements, and a couple months later, we actually did get pregnant for the first time ever. I made an appointment with the OBGYN to do a confirmation, which was about 5 weeks according to my estimation, because like I said, I wasn't keeping track of my period, so I wasn't 100% sure when the last day of my period was. So we go to the doctor, they do a urine test, like, oh yeah, you're pregnant. After that, some of the pregnancy symptoms that I had, I really didn't have many. The only ones that I had were tender boobs, and I was really hungry all the time. I've been the type of person for at least 5 to 10 years where I don't really eat in the morning, but once I was pregnant, I was like hungry all the time. Like every 2 hours, I'm like ravished, so that was something that was different. Other than that, I didn't really have any other symptoms. So like those main ones I didn't have. I don't know if that was a warning sign or what, but I mean, people don't have pregnancy symptoms sometimes and everything's fine. Between weeks 5 and 8, Still, you know, just a little bit of hunger, not too much tiredness, but I did allow myself to rest because, you know, sometimes I get tired in the middle of the day, and rather than pushing through it, I was just like, let me just take a nap. And then probably around week 7, I felt like I kind of stopped having symptoms. I wasn't as hungry as I was before. I mean, like, the hunger kind of just stopped. And then also, I think my breast tenderness started to dissipate. You know, I was still bloated, I guess. I hadn't really started showing, of course. It was only about 8 weeks. I don't know. I don't want to say that I was suspicious, but I was cautious from the beginning just because it had taken so much time for me to get pregnant. I didn't want to get my hopes up. Once I started losing those symptoms, I was a little suspicious. Like, nothing too crazy. I was just like, well, you know, I guess, you know, I haven't gotten my period, so I guess things are okay. Oh yeah, one other thing I do need to mention is that between weeks 5 and 6, I had some spotting. After about week 7, that stopped and I didn't have any more spotting. So I didn't think too much about it, but it was a little bit of a concern. After that, I don't know, I just started being a little bit more cautious, I guess. We had an 8-week ultrasound scheduled. So the ultrasound tech did a vaginal ultrasound. She was looking around and she's like, I think I see something, but it's kind of small, you know. So she took some pics and stuff and she tried to listen for a heartbeat, but she couldn't really find one. After that, you know, it was just kind of like, uh-oh, I don't think that's good news. So we went and talked to the OBGYN. Basically, she was like, well, it looks like the fetus is about the size of 6 weeks rather than 8. But I knew in my mind that there was no way that it could be 6 weeks. I know I wasn't 100% sure when I had my period, but I know I wasn't 2 weeks off with the date. So, you know, that kind of startled me. The doctor was like, let's just do some blood tests, you know, to make sure that everything's okay. We're gonna have you come in 3 times this week. We scheduled those blood tests. That whole week, I went in and got the blood test. And when I went on Wednesday and got the results from the blood test and saw that my HCG levels had dropped some, that was, you know, that was tough because it's like, according to Dr. Google, once it goes down, it's not really gonna go back up. You know, that was just something really difficult to have to deal with. And for the whole week, you know, you just have your hopes up. Wednesday and Friday, I had my hopes up, like waiting to see the email with my test results in it. It was so anxious. By Saturday, when I got the results from Friday's test and it had continued to drop, it was like, okay, well, this is over. And, you know, that was really difficult. Just, you know, having to grapple with that, you know, after so much time. You've been trying to get pregnant and you finally did it and you're so excited about it. And then all of a sudden it's, you know, being lost right before your eyes. That weekend was very difficult, but I had another appointment on Monday for another ultrasound and to speak with the doctor. Basically, the fetus had shrunk more. It was now at a 5-week size. So, you know, the doctor and I just kind of talked about our options and whatnot. And basically, the 3 options are to let the miscarriage happen naturally. She said that it could take a few weeks for that to happen. My other option was to take some pills in order to trigger the uterus to contract. Or the third option was going to be to do a D&C, which is like a removal. So they'll put you to sleep and clean out your uterus. I thought that I wanted to just let it happen naturally, but after I got home later and started thinking like, okay, when is it gonna happen? because you don't know, like it could happen at any time. And by this time, it was the week of Thanksgiving. So I'm like, you know, when is this gonna happen? What's it gonna be like? And I started getting really anxious about it. So I called the doctor back and told her that I wanted to do the pills. So she called in a prescription for me. I picked them up and sat with it for a couple of days. And then I decided to take them on Thanksgiving. I took them probably around midnight. For some reason, the doctor didn't tell me that you take them vaginally. I thought I was gonna have to swallow them, but you stick them up your vag. And within 2 hours, I started getting cramps. But even before I took the pills, I was starting to get cramps. So I was like, you know what? It feels like it wants to start, so let me just go ahead and do this. Took the pills. I just like laid on the couch with a heating pad. I took 3 Tylenols, but it was probably a little late to take them. Maybe it's like what contractions would feel like. I chose to do the pills because I wanted to, I don't want to say experience it, but yeah, I did want to experience it. I wanted to know what it felt like. I didn't just want to go to sleep and then wake up and it's all over. So with the pills, it's like really bad cramps. So I'm like going to the bathroom every few minutes, pushing blood out. That went on probably for about 2 hours. And then close to the end of that 2 hours, it just got really bad. So I was just like sitting on the toilet and just like doubled over in pain. Closer to the beginning of it, I kind of felt like what I guess feeling like your water breaks. It felt like I peed, but it didn't come from my pee hole. It came from, you know, my vag hole. And then close to the end, when the cramps were really bad, I had like a big plop of something fall out, which I assume was the maybe placenta or something. I didn't look. So all that happened, I flushed, and then I felt a lot better after that. And I thought that it was over. I was a little disappointed that I didn't see the fetus or anything. The next day, things were normal. You know, I had on a pad to catch any extra blood or anything. On Saturday, I was just using the bathroom as usual, and I felt something come out. So I looked down in the toilet and I see this solid piece of matter, and I'm like, that looks like the pictures from my baby books. So I grab a glove and pull it out of the toilet. It was kind of in an encasing, you know, like a clearish sack, I guess you could say. So my husband's in the living room. I go and grab him and I show him, and I'm like, babe, you know, like, look at this. I'm like crying. We go into the bathroom, you know, and I tell him, I just, you know, like, I want to say a few words. When I was doing my Google searching, someone said, you know, you may see something, and, you know, it's up to you what you decide you want to do about it. You know, some people might want to bury it, you might want to flush it. And one thing that I read that I thought was really nice was, if you decide to flush it, then you can imagine the fetus or baby or soul or whatever you want to call it floating through the ocean, like under the stars. I just thought that that was really beautiful, so that was what I wanted to do. My husband and I both said a few words, and then I put it back in the toilet and made my husband flush. That was definitely an experience. It was really intense, but I also felt like it gave me closure because I did want to see it. You know, I did want to be able to have that finality. And I also knew that I didn't want to bury it because I knew that I would always be thinking about that particular place. And if I ever move anywhere, I don't want to be thinking about leaving it behind. I'd rather just let it go and be somewhere else that I have no specific point of place where it is. Overall, like, The most difficult part, of course, is between me and my husband, and because we were so excited, you know, we talk about our kids all the time. And for a while, it was hard to talk about our future kids because it was something we would always talk about it almost every day. Even before we were pregnant, we would talk about our kids. And so now, after that, it was like, there's a bit of sadness there that wasn't there. Like, sure, we were disappointed that we weren't pregnant, but now it's like even more disappointment because we were pregnant and then we lost it, and you have that whole emotional feeling behind it, whereas it wasn't there before. But now it's been 4 weeks since the miscarriage. About, you know, a few weeks after, things started getting easier. Now we're at the point to where we can talk about our kids and, you know, joke about them and not have as much sadness. Of course, it's still there, especially with the holidays, you know, seeing people with their kids and being happy and people making pregnancy announcements. I also wanted to share my story. Right when this was happening, it was the same week that Chrissy Teigen talked about her pregnancy loss, and also Meghan Markle talked about her pregnancy loss. So it was really relevant. Not many people talk about it. So I also wanted to talk about it. So I posted on Instagram about it, got a lot of support. You know, it made me feel better sharing that, and, you know, maybe helping someone else feel like they're not alone. You know, of course you feel sadness, but then for me, a couple of days after the miscarriage happened, I had an overwhelming feeling of gratitude. While that made me feel nice, you know, to be like, okay, I'm in the right place at the right time, I'm grateful for what I have, it also made me feel bad because, you know, of course I wanted my baby, but I still felt grateful that I'm able to be pregnant, because after so long, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to. I was grateful that I was able to be in control of my story. I was able to pass everything from my uterus safely and completely. And, you know, I'm just grateful for the experience. So I just hope that we can move on and have a healthy pregnancy that ends with a healthy baby. And, you know, that I hope that this never happens to me again. And I hope that if you're going through it, that you know that you are loved and you are enough. And I hope that you can find peace in it. And I hope that you can find your gratitude. So that's my story. My husband and I are going to start trying again. And, you know, we've just been kind of taking the time off just to heal. So we're going to try again. And hopefully, you know, in a few months, you'll see a video from me saying, I'm pregnant. Yeah, that's my story. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you were able to gain something from this video. I hope that you feel supported, because you are. So feel free to DM me, leave a comment, email me, whatever you want to do. My Instagram is naturally_mermaid. If you want someone to talk to, I'm here for you. So thank you for watching, and be sure to continue to make good choices for the health of your body and for the health of your planet. Thanks for watching.